Hello and welcome back to another synth video. Today we're diving into the mesmerizing world of the Erica Synths SYNTRX 2. So, what makes SYNTRX 2 so special? Well, imagine a self-contained musical playground where every sound is a puzzle piece waiting to be connected, shaped, and sculpted to create sonic landscapes that defy convention. Not only that, but because of SYNTRX 2's ingenious matrix-based patch system, it's much more versatile than other modular synthesizers, and you can save patches. I'm so excited to dive into SYNTRX with you today and show you the amazing music you can make on it. But before we do, the song you've been hearing in the background is my brand new single, Two Halves of a Heart. In my opinion, it's the best music I've ever released, and it would mean the world if you went and checked it out. The link is in the description. All right, let's get started. Before we go any further with SYNTRX 2, let's start with some synth history. While SYNTRX 2 and its predecessor SYNTRX 1 are original analog designs from Erica Synths, they take a lot of inspiration and heritage from the rare and incredibly fascinating world of EMS Synthi synthesizers. The EMS Synthi AKS and its predecessor, the VCS3, are legendary and groundbreaking synthesizers that emerged during a period of profound innovation in electronic music. During that time, there was really no blueprint for what a synthesizer should be, so you got all sorts of wild and innovative designs, and I think that's one of the reasons the Synthi has stood the test of time and is one of the all-time classic synthesizers. Created by synth pioneers Peter Zinoviev and David Cockerell, the story of the Synthi AKS begins with its predecessor, the VCS3. The VCS3, released by EMS in 1969, was one of the first personal synthesizers and gained popularity due to its versatility and experimental sound capabilities. The most eye-catching and unique feature of the VCS3 was its now famous pin matrix-based interface, where users could connect various modules and components using pins to create complex sound architecture. Building on the success of the VCS3, EMS set out to develop a more compact version of their synth built into a suitcase, which led to the birth of the Synthi A in 1971 and the Synthi AKS 1 year later in 1972. Now the KS in the Synthi AKS actually stands for keyboard and sequencer, and this was an absolute hit with artists. Throughout the 1970s, the Synthi AKS and VCS3 gained popularity among the who's who of musicians and influential artists, such as Brian Eno, Pink Floyd, Jean-Michel Jarre, and Tangerine Dream, who incorporated Synthi's unique capabilities into all of their groundbreaking compositions. Unfortunately, like so many golden age synthesizer companies, after financial woes and a run of less successful products following the AKS, EMS began to decline. In 1979, EMS was sold off and its assets and studio were liquidated. Over the next few years, the company almost faded away entirely into obscurity until in 1995, ex-EMS employee Robin Wood acquired the rights to EMS and the Synthi synthesizers, which he still to this day builds slowly, hand by hand in England, keeping the name and legacy alive. Today, both the VCS3 and AKS remain highly sought after, rare, and valuable collector's items in the world of vintage synths. With SYNTRX 2, Erica Synths are bringing back in their own way this amazing legacy of Synthi synthesizers, but adding a whole bunch of new design ideas, modern upgrades, and so much more. So my personal favorite way to use the SYNTRX 2 is as a bass and sound design monster, but you might use it completely differently, and I think that's the beauty of this instrument. It's incredibly versatile and deep. For this first song, every single sound you're hearing except for the kick and snare was made using SYNTRX 2. So SYNTRX 2, just like the EMS Synthi synthesizers it was inspired by, has a reputation of being great for noise and experimental music. And if this is what you're after, then look no further. The SYNTRX 2 is an absolute masterwork when it comes to experimental sounds. Two of my favorite features for experimental sound design on SYNTRX 2 are the randomized patch feature and the ability to paint in entire arrangements of patches and then see what happens. But what you might not expect is that SYNTRX 2 is also incredible for more traditional, soft, subtractive analog synth sounds. It can easily replace a Moog in your studio. Here, I've plugged in an external MIDI keyboard and made a very simple 3-oscillator monosynth patch and used the joystick to add in some really subtle random vibrato to give it that retro lo-fi vintage sound. Next, let's jump onto the front panel and learn about how SYNTRX works. Alright, so here we are on the front panel of SYNTRX 2. Now what's really cool about SYNTRX 2 is you're essentially getting an entire modular setup with a ton of different modules all in one convenient box with a built-in matrix that, as I mentioned before, can save and recall patches. So what's really cool about this is it would cost you way more than the price of SYNTRX to actually build out a Eurorack modular synthesizer with all these different modules, and you still wouldn't even be able to save patches. So let's start off by dialing in a basic patch. So we could literally just, as simply as we wanted, patch in one of the oscillators to the output. I'm just controlling this with a MIDI keyboard underneath, but we probably want to sculpt our sound more than that. So let's go ahead and we'll send oscillator 1 and 2 to the filter. Let's go ahead and send oscillator 2 there. Then we'll send our filter to the envelope over here, envelope signal. Then we'll send our envelope signal to the output. Now all of a sudden, we've got a very simple but nice sounding analog mono patch. That is so fat. That sounds so good. Now we probably want to control more of this patch than we have going on right now. So let's go ahead and take our trapezoid, which is the envelope on this synth, but let's go ahead and make the trapezoid modulate the filter frequency. So what this is going to do for those of you who are new to synthesis is basically every time we click a key, our filter is going to open based on how the trapezoid is shaped. Got a nice little acid sound now. Ooh, so rich. I just love the sound of this SYNTRX filter and the oscillators. What's really cool about this style of synthesis is that every single one of these modules, with a few exceptions, has its own independent level, and in some cases two. So we can really sculpt our sound. For example, if we want a really resonance-forward bass sound, we can bring down our levels really low and really let the resonance be the star of the show. But if we want to overdrive our filter, let's crank up those levels to max, and all of a sudden we're going to barely even hear the resonance. What that method allows us is that even though technically each of the oscillators only has square and sine and then square and saw, we're able to get some really great blends with these oscillators and do some really exciting things with them. We also have a third oscillator that is more usually used for modulation, but you can actually bring it in as well. Here I've put it in to the mixer if we want to have a 3 oscillator massive mono synth. So let's go ahead and tune this thing. We can change its shape. And let's tune it to the other 2 oscillators. Let's bring everything in. So if we take it out of really high audio rates back into LFO territory and we take it out of the signal path, we can then, oh, 1 second here, there we go. We can then go ahead and modulate some pretty cool destinations. So let's start with the filter frequency. So let's modulate with our triangle wave, modulate filter frequency. What's great is because this is a full range oscillator, we can get some great sounding analog FM. Similarly, I'm going to go ahead and try that on the oscillator shape, which I really like doing. So that's going to be pulse width modulation and saw modulation here. Let's go ahead and just hear it on 1 square wave so you can hear it more easily what's going on there. A great feature of this patch matrix is you don't have to fully commit to something just being on or off like it would be with a cable being plugged in. By pressing the left stick, we can actually determine how much we have. So with 1 press, we're gonna have full, 1 more press about 50%, and then 1 more press about 25%. So let's try that for some vibrato. So with this way, we can get some really great sounding FM patches like that aren't too crazy and too over the top. We can bring back in oscillator 2 and do some hard sync with it, which is really fun. Let's bring in some noise. We already had the noise brought in there. So as you can see, you can get really harmonically complex really fast. So let's go ahead and check out the ring mod, which is another feature I really like. So I'm going to take away some of these things here. I'm going to grab ring mod A. So with ring modulation, you choose 2 sources and then you can mix in the level here and it sounds amazing with analog ring modulation. So let's take oscillator 1 for 1 source and then let's pick, let's actually keep it on oscillator 2 over here. And then let's bring in the ring modulator into the filter down here. And we have ring mod. So now, as we change the tuning, Let's make the envelope here go longer. Oh, that sounds amazing. You can get some really atonal metallic sounds with the ring mod. So I've brought us back to a simple patch here to showcase the effects, which are really great sounding. Now, the effects are mono, which is a shame, but they sound fantastic and they have a ton of character, and you're actually able to kind of fake stereo with the 2 panning outputs out here. So I've got a basic patch here, sounds like this. So we're gonna bring in the effects by sending the effects to output 2, and then let's bring in the volume. We've got a reverb and delay. That's the delay, and then here's the reverb. I love the reverb. I've got a feature on right now where the feedback actually creates almost a granular-like effect. It's really cool. You heard me using this reverb all over the demo track. Now, what I like to do is I like to pan the reverb one way and pan the output the other way. Now, for me at least, that effect, while it's not true stereo reverb, it sounds really satisfying because you're basically getting a full stereo binaural effect with the synth patch. Beautiful. Now, I'm not going to do a full tutorial of what every single module does. There's already a great video from Loop-Pop on that, but hopefully this gives you an idea of how the actual workflow works. There's all sorts of great modules on here like inputs and random and different output filters to actually EQ your sound. And there's also a built-in sequencer, which we've looked at already. I was using that to create a lot of the riffs and ideas you heard. So basically, all that to say is that this is a very fully featured modular synthesizer. The sky really is the limit, and it works really well for pretty much whatever you want to do with it. Alright, hopefully that brief walkthrough gave you a better idea about how to use SYNTRX 2 and just how inspiring it can be and how deep it can go. So how about my review with some pros and cons? Well, for the pros, SYNTRX 2 is officially my new favorite mono synth I own. While it might not be quite as immediate and hands-on for a beginner as something like my beloved Sub 37, it more than makes up for that by having just an absolutely incredible sound with a really unique character and the depth that I've been talking about this entire video. The types of sounds I can get on SYNTRX 2 can go anywhere from soft and sensitive to absolutely cacophonous and noisy, and I really feel like it can go anywhere in between and excel at pretty much everything along the way. It really is absurdly creative, and every time I sit down for a session, I end up with a whole bunch of interesting recordings that I can sample later, like you heard in that first heavy demo song. How about the cons? Well, all that experimental power comes at the cost of a little bit of convenience. You have to be patient with tuning your oscillators, and the MIDI implementation is not quite as easily accessible as on some of my other synths. But those, in my opinion, are pretty negligible, and as long as you like the workflow with the patch matrix, I'm very confident you're gonna love SYNTRX 2. If you like the sound and are excited by how deep and experimental, yet warm and beautiful the synth can go between, then this is an easy recommendation for you, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It only takes a second for you, and it truly does really help me know what kind of videos to make and give me the encouragement to keep going with what I'm doing. Let's finish this off with one more SYNTRX jam, and I will see you in the next video.